So the discussion around economic model which is going to work for what we are trying to do. Let's look at Ghana today as a poor country. It's poor in the sense that we do not collect enough tax revenue. We cannot fund the infrastructure that we need. Our output is probably $60 billion, or now that the city is stronger, a little more in a year. And that's the collective output of 30 million people plus. And per capita incomes are therefore probably $1,500 for the whole year. And life expectancy is probably 65 average in a world in which Japan has a life expectancy of 85. And in this context, what we are trying to say is, how does innovation, engineering, technology help that journey that Ghana is on? We have a certain dichotomy in our political, in our social discourse. Most of the debate right now is what politicians can do, is what government must do, is what policies we need. And it's essential for the transformation of any society that you look at your leadership, you look at your government, and you look at your direction. Now the other question though is going to be, what do we do next when a person who has, let's say, a 4-year mandate, or in some cases even an 8-year mandate to rule, is not connecting with the right ideas? Do we just, advocate that that person should connect with the right ideas, or do we also put in place an academic process where those ideas are birthed out of an academia that is so influential, is so authoritative, that people have no option except to listen and to connect with the ideas that they are also surfacing? When you are able to build that bedrock of thinking, that thought industry, you ready yourself for people who can also take some of that thinking and who have the mettle, who have the resilience to fight as entrepreneurs towards a certain capital opportunity that funds them. That is what has sometimes been wrongly characterized as making the private sector the engine of it. It's not just a question of saying we are stating a policy position that says we are identifying this sector and allocating responsibilities, but you are cultivating talent, you are cultivating resilience from people who are going to be able then to brave all odds to go and connect with capital. And it is in that process that you are going to be able to up that revenue story that you are talking about. You're going to be able to up that culture story. You're going to be able to up the style of the citizen, so that certain practices of hygiene, certain practices of medication, certain practices of sanitation, and so on and so forth, lift us to a certain level. Let's not, as an IT guy, we have come across many times that confusion between, are we working on our primary copy of our infrastructure, or are we taking a backup? We are not necessarily taking a backup through entrepreneurship and innovation and capital and so on and so forth. We do know that the primary thing that we have to ensure is that we have good leadership. What we are acknowledging is that we do not necessarily have laws that will allow us to filter out and get the perfect leader anytime that we want one. So what structures do we need to put in place? So if you look across the world, you will see that in the Netherlands, I spent 5 years living in the Netherlands, but in the year 2002 when I got to the Netherlands, there was no prime minister. The coalition had failed, and the Queen had put a caretaker in charge until they can get a new coalition. But under those circumstances, children were being vaccinated, schools were open, the roads were working. And that's because there are certain institutions that are the bedrock of the place. I do not divorce myself from the bloody history of the country itself. The Dutch VOC company, the East India company, or whatever it was called, and the colonial past, the slavery, the castles, a certain amount of capitalism funded a certain part of the foundation of the country. And therefore it looks today like it's just efficient in a vacuum, and it's based on a certain abstract concepts of development which they just stumbled upon. I'm not in denial that that is the unique issue. What I'm saying is that Africa is also strong. And I'm saying that we come from a country in which we must fight the narrative. We must not let people say that we are not great, because the nations that have come together to form Ghana are nations that individually have solid foundations in heritage and history. There's Ghana people, there's Akwamus, there's Anlos, there's Ashantis, there's the Gombes, and these people's history is very rich. And it was a certain compromise that led to the connection of what is today present-day Ghana. As far back as 1898, the Aborigines Rights Society was able to overturn the land bill in a London court. The work of people like John Mensah Saba ensured that the British Colonial Authority could not pass the land bill. They passed it, but they had to reverse it a year later. And that tells you that the colonialists at that time were not able to set aside our land tenure systems. In 1896, they took Prempeh I out of Ghana and put him in Seychelles. But in 1924, he came back as still the ruler of the Ashanti people. There are very few monarchs in history, maybe Haile Selassie, Napoleon, and a few others, who are able to go into exile and come back. Most of the time, they get killed. But it takes a certain, mettle of leadership to be able to achieve those things. The 17th century incursion of the Akwamus to seize the keys of the Kirstenbourg Palace is something that today is still celebrated. When they have their festivals, when they have Ujra and so on, they show the keys. But those are things that tell you that the colonial journey is overstated by people whose narrative tries to make the conqueror look more important than they actually were. But based on that heritage, we are strong enough to be able to chart our own course, and we must therefore put innovation at the center through universities, through research, and be able to do the same. You can cut it. Yeah, okay.